Hello everyone, and welcome to another Dinosaur Days. Today is my favorite dinosaur, the Dilophosaurus. This is one that I'm really excited to talk about, and not just because it's my favorite dinosaur, but because popular media portrayal really screwed this guy up. This fella was made famous by his appearance in Jurassic Park. You might remember this friendly little fella, just a fun little guy coming to say hello, no problems there, except the face-melting acid and giant frills, both of which unfortunately are not real. The Dilophosaurus in the film is very small, probably maxing out around 3.5, 4 feet tall at the shoulder, and can't even really look Nedry fully in the eyes. That doesn't stop him from spitting venom into his eyes though, after giving him a quick display from that colorful frill. However, apart from the two crests on his head, this Dilophosaurus is essentially nothing alike the real-life counterpart, which is strange because there isn't really a good explanation for this portrayal. The first remains of the Dilophosaurus were found in the 1940s, so we've known about the size of this animal for almost 100 years now. Additionally, no fossil evidence whatsoever has been found to indicate a frill or venom glands of any type. Some of this can be blamed on the source material. The Jurassic Park novel did have the Dilophosaurus spit venom, like in the movie. However, in the novel, they did not have the frills and they were an accurate size, so it's really unclear where those other features came from. I suppose it was probably more marketable to have dinosaurs that weren't the same size as the velociraptors, because they would have looked pretty similar apart from the crest. And don't worry, we will be talking about size in Velociraptors in Jurassic Park with the next Dinosaur Days video. But let's stop focusing on what the movie did wrong. Let's focus on what we think Dilophosaurus actually looked like to give it a little bit of its own recognition. This dinosaur was plenty interesting even if it didn't have venom and a frill. Let's start with size. In the movie, like we said, the Dilophosaurus was depicted as about the size of a large dog, but in real life, the Dilophosaurus is compared to the size of a grizzly bear. The largest skeleton found of the Dilophosaurus suggests that this animal was almost 25 feet long and about 6 feet tall at the hip, with the largest estimate of weight being around 880 pounds. The skeletons found showed that this animal had large, powerful hind limbs and was likely a very strong runner. More evidence into this idea is that fossilized footprints of Dilophosaurus have been found, which shows a lot of different information about its gait, its speed, and its general activities. These fossilized footprints might also shed light on another aspect of the dinosaur, the possibility of feathers. Surrounding the areas that fossilized and showed where the Dilophosaurus had rested and laid down, there are imprints in the soil that almost resemble what it would look like if feathers were pressed into the ground, which some scientists claim is evidence that the animal was to some degree feathered. However, other scientists claim that these markings were simply the dirt being scratched up by the animal moving around, and that there's not quite enough evidence to claim that this dinosaur was feathered. As you can see, I am not drawing my Dilophosaurus with feathers. I personally don't think that some scuff marks in the soil can really go so far as to be used as evidence for feathers, but I completely understand that it is still a possibility, as this dinosaur is more closely related to avian dinosaurs than some of the other animals that are depicted with feathers. And while I didn't include it in the drawing here, usually when I draw Dilophosaurus, I do include feather quills, which I believe would have been a bit more likely on this animal, although that is just speculation on my end. Which I suppose is a decent tangent into probably the biggest debate in all of paleontology, even bigger than the did dinosaurs have lips debate, which is the did dinosaurs have feathers, and if yes, which ones debate, which we will talk about more in depth in the next video, but we can touch on here. Generally, there are going to be 3 things I'm looking for in regards to a dinosaur before I decide for myself if I believe that they could have had feathers or not. Number 1 is going to be the fossil record for the dinosaur itself. Have the skeletons of the dinosaur been found with preserved skin that showed feathers? Have feather imprints been found directly next to the skeleton? If yes, I think that's a pretty clear-cut answer to show, hey, this species probably had some level of feathering. Second is the fossil history of the ancestors of the dinosaur. Did previous iterations of the dinosaur or distant relatives have fossilized feathers in their records? If yes, then it's a pretty clear connection that it could be possible that this descendant dinosaur also had feathers. Lastly is a relationship to avian dinosaurs or birds. The closer a dinosaur is going to be in the evolutionary tree to avian dinosaurs or birds, the more likely it is to have feathers, or at least the precursors to feathers, like the quills I mentioned earlier. Does this provide an exclusionary criteria for dinosaurs that don't really fit into any of those categories? No, I don't think so. For example, Tyrannosaurus rex really doesn't fit into any of those criteria for evidence of feathers, but I do personally believe that T-Rex chicks could have been hatched with a layer of downy feathers, and T-Rex itself could have even had filament feathers, although I don't believe that a T-Rex would have been fully feathered as it is depicted sometimes. Feather tangent aside, let's get back to the Dilophosaurus. It may not have had the venom or the frill shown in the movie, but it did have those two colorful crests on the top of its head. As we discussed in my previous video on the Carnotaurus, if an animal has something in its morphology that doesn't really make sense in terms of fighting or catching food, it's probably for sexual selection. It's thought that these crests could have potentially extended far beyond what is seen on the skull, potentially covered in keratin or fleshy substances. So I decided to give my Dilophosaurus something like a rooster's comb, brightly colored but kind of fleshy, and I also gave him a rooster's wattle as well. It's likely that these crests were brightly colored or could be flushed with blood to change colors in the event of intimidation or sexual display. That will conclude today's Dinosaur Day video on Dilophosaurus, who deserves just as much recognition for his actual appearance compared to what was shown in the Jurassic Park film. The next video to come out will probably be a dinosaur drawing tutorial, and then after that, it will be the last Dinosaur Day video in this sketch collection. Make sure to send me your suggestions for future Dinosaur Day videos, and make sure to smile.